Declared as a result of the vote. Time is 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, May 19th, 2022. We will be holding the Budget Committee meeting for Jervis, Oregon. This meeting is now called to order. Roll call, Mtg, to do that, please.
Yes. First, I'll do the mayor and council. Mayor Gillen.
Here.
Councilor Foreman.
Here.
Councilor Gonzalez.
He's absent.
Council President Wagner.
He's here on Zoom.
She unmuted. I can't hear. Yeah. Council President Wagner.
Are you there?
Move forward. Councilor Barge.
Here.
Councilor Harvey.
Here.
Budget Committee members, Andrea Barrera. Thank you. Connie Barrera.
Here.
Susan Smith. Thank you. Christopher Barch.
Here.
Laura Clifton. Angie Peters. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Denise. Announcements, additions, and deletions, are there any? No? Okay, now it's time to elect a committee chair and vice chair. Any nominations for a committee chair and vice chair?
I nominate Andrea
Okay,
for chair. I'm sorry.
okay. Okay, any nominations for vice chair?
Katrina.
Well, we do that after the chair.
Oh, you do? Okay. So we have two nominations for Andrea and Christopher. We're gonna vote on that? So,
You need a second on that?
I don't know how this one works. Yep, we need a second. I'll second it, Andrea.
But
Or-
I
You gotta
I
go-
think that, yeah.
For Chris.
You gotta get them up here, you guys.
She doesn't want to do it, then that's fine.
Any discussion? No? Okay, so all for Chris vote. Do you want to do it, Andrew? Well, I'll vote for you just because I want to vote for you.
No, let's let Chris do it.
Okay, so all in favor for Chris, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, the ayes have it, and Chris is our chair. Now we'll nominate a vice chair. I'll nominate Laura Clifton, since we don't have a lot left. Any other nominations? Okay, she's been second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and the motion carries. So Chris, I'm gonna, I think at this point, hand it up to you to, who pledge of allegiance? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, for that. Thank you, councilors and all the citizen committee members that are here. If I recall correctly, we start with a little bit of introduction to the budget from Susie, our city manager.
Okay. Thank you, Chris, Chair Barch. I think everybody knows me, but I'm Susie Marston, City Manager for Jervis.
I don't have my hearing aid on.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you, Chair Barch. I provided a written budget message in your packet, and I'll add a little bit to it verbally. This budget that is in front of you is a balanced budget, and it's in accordance with Oregon budget law. Total budget is approximately $8.2 million. It is higher than last year, and that is because we received a $1 million grant from Marion County for their American Rescue Plan program, which I'll talk about later in the meeting. Another important thing to note is with the development of Ivy Woods, half of those new homes are on the tax roll. So because of that, we saw a 14% increase in property tax revenue. So that subdivision is going to bring 61 new homes to Jervis. So with half of them being on the tax roll this year, we could expect the same increase for next year, which has really been a big help in putting the budget together. And then, of course, we were allocated our own American Rescue Plan funds, which I did talk about last year, but I can talk about that more tonight. Some other things I wanted to highlight. Let's see. So I just wanted to say that we continue to cost share with the school district to provide a student success officer. The city and the school district engaged in an intergovernmental agreement to cost share a student success officer through the year 2026. So their portion of that share is $87,000 into our general fund to help offset the personnel costs. That's about it on the revenue side. The COLA for this year is 7.4%. I've been following conversations from other cities, and it's consistent with what they are all going to do. We can handle it this year. Of course, it's not something that's sustainable for ongoing years. We'll just have to see where things are at next year. I've also heard from, in the private sector, they're doing the same thing. So anyway, that's what the COLA is. Well, like private businesses, non-public. That's what I've heard. Yes.
The question was, what is the private sector? What was she referring to? She explained that. And, what was the question?
My question is, what other cities did you talk to that are doing that?
Oh, I just follow the conversation on I'm on a city manager's listserv.
So nobody in particular?
Well, yeah, there are people in particular, but I didn't make a list of those cities. I can provide that information later. I just don't have it with me tonight.
I'm just curious what cities was doing it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Our medical insurance benefit increases 44% on average this year, which is lower than previous years. Previous years, it's been anywhere between 5 and 7%.
Is it a decrease?
Increase. Yes. Yeah. Things that we have in progress and things to look forward to, which I've included in this budget. We should have a generator this budget year to power the city hall in the event of an emergency, to keep our emergency operations center open. I've budgeted to get a new website for the city. Approximate cost for first year cost is $10,000. So I was able to put that in this year's budget in the general fund. We've got money allocated to put towards a skate park that the council has been talking about with the ad hoc committee. Excuse me. And then also they've been talking about a veterans wall, which I've also included in here. So, excuse me. As we work through the budget, in years past, we've just gone through page by page. This year I did include an overview page in front of each budget that explains what the fund is for and what we can expect, the significant things we can expect for this coming year. So I hope that you guys all found that helpful, but
Yes, very much.
good. So, I mean, that's really all I want to say about the budget message. You know, as we work through it, people can ask questions, whatever. So that's really all I have to say. Oh, Mickey has a question. How much has been budgeted for skate park and Veterans Wall? Mickey has a question. How much has been budgeted for skate park and Veterans Wall? We'll get to this later in the conversation, but skate park, we have 57,000 going towards it. And the Veterans Wall, I've got allocated 7,500, but that's based on brick sales. So it's just my best guess.
Any other budget committee members have questions for Susie before we get into?
When you talk about the COLA, the federal's only, what is it, 5.9%? I'm kind of curious about that one.
Well, again, we use the consumer price index with past practice. I've used the rate where the CPI was at in February of this year, and this year it was at 7.4. Last year it was 1.6.
We don't use the average of the year, the February, just pick one point. Picking 1 month like that is 12 points of data on a CPI index. For me, it's just knowledge that you take the 12 points of data and you sum them and then you divide them by 12, and that is your average that you would get and should use. That's the way I've seen it done where I work and many other places. Other mayors I talked to said that that's what they do. So how we just pick 1 month, I think could ultimately, it's cherry picking is for lack of better words. I think that that's a practice we shouldn't do. I think we should average it, and it could for you that it would work out better, especially on a year like this year. It could work out better next year for you, or it could be less and we could be paying too much. So I would like to see it average. I would like it not to be just 1 month. Okay, here we go. I don't find that to be good now, but that's my opinion.
Well, it is consistent with the practices of other cities, like I mentioned, and I can provide that information for you after this meeting. And I mentioned private sectors, and, you know, I hate to point it out specifically, but Mayor, you were in yesterday or the day before saying that you received an 8% COLA in your job.
No, I did not say I received an 8%. I received a 6.5%, but it was a merit increase. It was not a COLA.
Thank you.
So I just have a question. If we change the methodology that we have historically done and take that methodology instead, does that potentially put us in trouble next year if the math using that methodology is significantly higher? I don't know.
Well, COLA raises aren't given every year by the federal government, as we know. They're given sporadically or periodically as they can afford to do it. I don't think as a city government, we should be any different. If you give it, you do. It's no, I don't believe there's any rules saying we have to give it every year. Is it nice? Sure. Citizens probably so. We can raise it. That would be my point.
The other half of my question was just historically, does that shifting from the process that we've done historically and the math, and another adopt a different process that you're discussing, does that make any big impact to the budget from next?
Well, it depends on what methodology the council would decide on. And it would depend on where the CPI was at in that particular year. So I mean, this year we're in an inflationary period, so things are, I'll just say untraditionally higher. You know, just like the cost of everything.
I'm sorry, Chris, I forget.
Councilor Harvey.
Uh,
Go ahead, Councilor Harvey.
I would like to make a statement. First off, I'm on Social Security. My raise and thing was 5.9%. Now, myself, I don't see why anybody else should be getting any more than what like that get. And plus, what you just said, things are tough. Things are tough for all these people in this town also. Not only for the city, whatever, but everybody's having a tough time now. So to me, that would be the best, but we average that out and possibly make it a little. That would help not only the city, but everybody that lives in the city. We're all taxpayers here, so that's the way I look at it. I'd like to help out the taxpayers every once in a while. We don't seem to be doing that very often. I think it's time we started doing a little more of it.
So Susie, if that's been our standard practice, how long has that been our standard practice now that we've been taking the February and using that as our rate for the following year?
So the CPI index structure changed, I think, back in 2018. So they've been replaced with new tables. And so I don't remember exactly what the structure is prior to then, but I don't remember it being broken down by month. It was given, I don't even remember. I don't want to say, but anyway, so to answer your question, I've been doing this since the structure changed in 2018. Using February as a measure.
So was there an amendment made to what we were doing to change that? Or do we just change it whenever we feel like it?
I mean, I use my
I
best
thought we went with
judgment.
Amendments on what we have in our charter and our whatever else. If
I-
something needs to be changed, we usually put an amendment in. We don't just change it because we think it's a better way to go. That's not the way we've ever done.
What would have been amended? I don't,
Well, you would have made it the way we were doing it.
which I did. I mean, there's,
Can you show me the paperwork on that?
I don't have any paperwork.
You have
I mean-
to have, if there's an amendment made, there has to be some paperwork.
I understand that, but there's never been a resolution or anything that sets the method.
Resolutions are. I mean, I'm just.
I'm sorry, but you gotta start doing things around here a little differently. Gotta be going by what the rules state that we should do. Want to change things, you need to amend it, change it. I can't find where we've done anything like.
So council permission.
So I guess my question is, what does it specifically state in our charter as to how you, I mean, it says that all employees are just supposed to get a COLA increase, correct? Is there
I
anything
don't think
specific
so.
about that?
Yeah, there's nothing in the charter that says that. It's just always been the practice of
That
the
we
city.
give a COLA
Yeah. And it's ranged from, last year was 1.6, the highest I've ever seen it. Before this year was 2.5. This year is just extraordinarily high.
I think we need to make some changes before we go on with this. This, where we're going on with it, I don't believe is correct. We're gonna get in trouble with it.
Well, here's a suggestion. This isn't anything set in stone. It's a financial plan for 22-23 fiscal year. It's May. These COLAs wouldn't go into effect until July 1st. So if the council wants to have a discussion on what methodology to use to incorporate a COLA, then you could approve the budget as is. Of course, we need to go through the rest of it. With the understanding that the budget committee is not approving the 7.4% COLA. There will be more discussion by the council, and then whatever the council decides, we can incorporate July 1st.
I think that's.
And so my question being then, so say we said, okay, we don't want to do 7. We want to go back to the average. And you're gonna have to go back and change.
The budget itself won't change. It just, right now, the wages show a 7.4% COLA. If you guys adopt something that's less than 7.4, it's just gonna mean that there's more of a budget balance left.
Figure out what the average looks like.
I'd like to see the CPI index.
I've got it here tonight if you'd like to see
Well,
it.
I'd like to see the average. And we would pull months and divide it by 2 or 10. Which CPI, the same one for the water. Not the same CPI.
Yeah, for wastewater though, we use the December.
Right, but that's the
Yeah.
same number of figures.
Yes, it's
So
from the
average of
same,
the year would have been all 4. So the social security is even 5.9, so that would be 1.6 higher than what the guy that we're supposed to. So, well, we'll talk about it later, but that's actually an increase to what the guy is saying. Yeah, those numbers would be 4.3. Okay. I like the idea of talking about it.
did you want to see the CPI index?
Sure.
Just a minute. So this is it. Should be able to see it okay. We use the CPI-U, which you can see up here, is the newer index reflecting the buying habits of all urban households. This particular chart is actually the lesser of the two. You can see this, the rates on the CPI-W are quite a bit higher. And then over here, we use the Pacific class size BC, or Pacific size class BC. And you'll see in February, that's where I measure it from, 7.4.
You took it from this year, so.
Yeah.
So you took it from the current.
Just
So
like,
there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 points out of the bar. I thought that previous year, and that's what. Were we in the?
Chart shows previous year as well. The
Yeah.
next to those. So you can look back and, you know, so you can even take February to February if you wanted and March to March.
Right.
yeah,
Well, you could do February to 3rd, that would be fine.
Yeah.
and do they average it?
And then what they did is even on the average, decided to get more. I mean, they on their own decided to. They went the wrong averaging and then deciding, well, that's probably the process that we're.
Well, so if this has been the standard practice now for 4 years running, right? I don't believe that we are wrong in trying to, as the council, try to discuss maybe a better methodology of it.
Sure.
But trying to attack the methodology that's being used, because that's been the practice now for 4 years, I think that's kind of getting us off into weeds right now,
Sure.
right? I agree that it's very worthwhile to look at maybe a better methodology to calculate the COLA for our city. But if this has been our practice again for the past 4 years, right now we're kind of jumping on an issue that this isn't brand new. This isn't something that just changed this year. We're just seeing a much bigger number because all of a sudden the inflation rate for this past February was such a huge jump compared to the previous years. Right. So I think that while this is a worthwhile conversation, I think right now we're kind of getting off into weeds that don't really pertain to the budget committee, right?
Yeah, sure, that's fine. We can do this.
I think she was just
Yeah.
saying she can't hear Annie or John.
Yeah.
so.
Sorry, Mary. We're gonna move on.
Okay, any other further discussion? before we
I
move
just
on?
want to make a statement that as far as myself goes, there was no attack on that at all. It's just that I see a problem, and I think we need to address that. And right now it needs to go to another avenue to be discussed, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
I want to make that point. It's something that I thought was right. That's what we're dealing with. That's why it's here. That's what we're talking. There you go. Thank you.
Fair enough. All right, if we're ready, let's please move on to start discussing the specifics of each page of the budget. I think Susie can probably explain this in clearer words than myself, but basically the way that the budget is set up is we see a set of resources for each fund, or is that the correct
Yes.
term? Resources, and then we see a set of requirements against each fund. And at the end, the resources and the requirements should balance each other out. Is there any other explanation that you would like to add?
No, that's a good high level explanation.
So if we could start with the budget summary for the entire fiscal year.
Page one.
Page one. Okay, so we have on the budget summary, we have each of the primary fund sources listed with a beginning balance. Taxes, fees, licenses, permits, assessments, fines, and charges. Intergovernmental grants, allocations, and donations. Revenues from bonds or other debts. All other revenues and other transfer in. And then for each sum, we have a total amount of resources given. Are there any questions so far on how the budget's laid out? Then we have expenditures. We have personnel services, materials and services, capital outlay, and debt services, with a total for each of those expenditure lines per fund. Then we have other uses, which are transfers out, contingencies, reserves, and the unappropriated funds with their subtotals. And then we have a complete subtotal of expenditures and other uses for all of the above. Any questions on the summary of the budget? Okay. Let's move on to the individual funds. I will again thank Susie for the summary pages that were provided. I found this very, very helpful for myself, certainly as I was going through the budget this year. I think it helped give a real good layman's term sort of overview of what the fund is about and what we are expecting to both get and spend out of each one of those funds. So before we move on to the details, were there any questions from committee members on the overview for the general fund?
Explains it very well.
Okay. Next, we have a pie chart provided, which gives our resources coming in for the fund. These are the various revenue streams. So you can see it's broken out. The vast majority of the general fund comes from our property taxes at 62%. We had 16% transfer in to the fund from beginning cash balances, and then broken out between some of the other resources as seen on the chart.
I do have a question on the property taxes themselves. What is the percentage rate?
The percentage rate that we charge it out at.
I don't know the percentage. I know we charge $8.09 per thousand. The county assesses that tax.
All of that, or that's the total that this property is taxed at, and then the city gets a chunk of that?
Yeah, the city gets a chunk of that. I don't have that number with me tonight. Okay. You could, it's on your property tax statements too, if you want to have a quick reference at home or.
See, I can't do it. I'm so sorry. My hearing went dead. You can just keep the mic with you.
I was just gonna say the breakdown is on your property tax statements as well, if you want a quick reference at home. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay. Next pie chart is our expenditures for the general fund. So again, nice and clearly, you can see that the police budget out of the general fund is 64% of the general fund. Administration costs is 16%. The contingency and reserves 12%. And then the rest of the expenditures broken out as seen as small.
I was just trying to understand the mayor and city council expense. So that, besides the stipend every month, is that going to conferences? Is that other things like that? Sorry, Annie, I'm sorry. So the question that I have is, I was just about the city council and the mayor funds or on the budget line here. It just seemed like, not like it's a lot of money, but more than I would have thought as far as, you know, going to the limited conferences that have been offered and then of course the stipend every month. So
Yeah, so,
So page 11 kind of breaks it down. The biggest portion of it is the stipend, and then, or I guess the biggest portion is the amount that we're spending in conferences at 1,500 budgeted, and then the stipend is 1,200. That makes up the vast majority.
have we spent 1,500 on conferences?
we have not, of course, the last 2 years we've been in COVID, so it's been a limited experience. But it's money budgeted for any council member to attend the LOC conference, and then I've got the mayor's annual conference in there. Those are the two main ones.
Any other questions on the overview of the expenditures? Before we get into the details. Okay. Page 5 now, we are on the breakdown list of all of our resources. I won't cover every line. If anybody has any questions, just please type up. As you can see, we transferred in a balance of $245,766. Other sources of revenue, we've got some interest coming in. We have previously levied taxes. State revenue sharing is a fairly big chunk of that. Franchise fees. We have a set of recovered expenditures, miscellaneous, court fees, fines, penalties. We have some other tax resources coming in from the liquor, cigarette, and marijuana taxes. One thing I noticed, just as a point of commentary, our revenue from the marijuana tax is going down significantly every year. If I remember right from previous explanations, that's because we don't have any dispensaries or any of that sort of thing local to us. So our portion of it goes down year by year. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
It might be a typo, but
Diane,
sorry. On the land use fees line, I see a -833 under last year's actual use. Is that a typo? Because normally the negative are in parentheses and it doesn't make sense to have a negative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Line 18. Yes.
Line 18. No, that's not a typo. We did some reconciliations of land use accounts, and I think that was an adjustment that was caught up in the reconciliation. Thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions on our incoming resources. Okay, next page. Yes, yes, Councilor Harvey.
I'm not sure what that is. That's all. What is the school excise tax administration fee? $500.
So there's an ordinance, the school collects a construction excise tax. The city gets to keep 1% of it. So they charge $1.39 per square foot. And so it's been up last year and this year because of Ivy Woods, because we collect a percentage on every new piece of construction.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, page 6. Now we get into our requirements. In other words, our spending from that fund. First, we have our personnel services. One point to know for anybody who might be new to the budget committee, our staff has their salaries broken into different funds based on a prorated amount that's been decided at some point in time, between general, water fund, street fund, maybe another one.
Yeah, general, street, water, wastewater, and storm drain.
Based on averages of how much of their time is spent with each one of those city responsibilities. So we have the breakdown of our various city administrator, their salaries, manager, clerk, recorder. We have payroll tax, insurance, including the medical, dental, and the PERS insurance.
Well, I got a question on that. As the adopted budget is 6,757. 21-22. Proposed is 3,171.
What line are you on?
That's on 6.
Line 6, for the PERS.
Yeah, that seems like quite a drop.
I can answer that. Last year, I budgeted PERS at a higher rate than it actually turned out to be. So the rates are lower than what I budgeted for last year.
Percent?
Yep.
How many stayed in the general fund, right?
Yes.
So that would have been part of our line 1 from the previous page, the cash on hand that got transferred. Any other questions on the personnel expenses? Okay. The next section is for materials and services. Broken into all kinds of various lines. We have maintenance, repair, software maintenance. You'll notice that there was a huge increase in software maintenance. Am I right to assume that's the website?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
And I asked on that. So it's still, even if you figure it was 10,000 for the website, right?
Yeah.
What's the additional from the, and it's 7,500 versus 3,700?
400 more.
Why is there additional, like what else beyond that, I guess,
Yeah.
is being budgeted for?
Because I took another look at our annual software maintenance fees. And I reallocated some of them to spread them out differently amongst the budget. The total cost of the fees is still the same. It's just depending on what the software fee was for, I tied it to that appropriate department or budget or fund.
Since I do have a question on the website. Since that's obviously a fairly big chunk of this incoming year's budget, what are the primary, if we could just get like the key goals that we're trying to gain from our new website, so we can kind of get what that $10,000 is going towards.
Oh.
We have online pay.
Oh, okay. It's possible. I think the website developer, Denise and I actually watched a demo from one, and I think that was one option that we could add into it. But I know there's other online payment options as well that are separate from city websites. It's a different provider. I think what you'll gain from a new website based on what Denise and I saw is it will be more user friendly and not that ours doesn't look unprofessional, but it might look a little more professional. You know, just more options, easier on the backside to maintain and, you know, keep up to date. So just basically newer technology and easier to use on both ends of the spectrum.
Swifter, basically.
Yes, yeah.
So, will it also allow for, to go in and clean up all the old antiquated information that is still existing on our current website that is outdated? And then will it allow us to use a more contemporary perspective on what we're able to put on the website?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, we'll have to take a deeper dive into it to see what all the capabilities are. And what I've budgeted, I'm just using an estimate from one developer. So when we decide to go forward with a website development, then we'll bring to the council specific costs and packages, and we'll just look at it. Council will make a decision, and
So how many people are you going to talk to?
at least 3.
Other lines under the materials and services that were somewhat of note. Yeah, insurance, training conferences. One line that also had a fairly significant jump was professional services. We almost doubled. Is it safe to assume that's mostly lawyer fees?
Well, those are included in professional services. But one thing that I did include here, we touched briefly at the last council meeting on a conversation about growth. And so I mentioned that there are first steps to do to plan if the council decides to expand its urban growth boundary. There's land use steps to do, and our planner has been in touch with me to talk to me about that. And they provided a cost estimate if that's the direction we want to go. So the cost estimate was $25,000. I did put it in the budget in this line item if the council decides to move forward. Just because I have it in here doesn't mean that staff is going to move forward with it. If the council decides to move forward with that, there's also resources for grant funding to help with that kind of work too. So the city may not, have to bear the whole cost of $25,000 if we decide to move forward, but I just put it in here as a placeholder if that's the direction everybody wants to go.
Insurance and bonding, what exactly is that? I know insurance, but bonding.
Yeah, bonding, we can actually take that out of the title. The insurance line items, again, it's spread across the budget, multiple funds, but that includes our property and liability insurance as well as workers' comp.
So it's up considerably.
Well, there again, like the software maintenance, like I did with the software maintenance, I took another look at the insurance where the invoices and whatnot. And so the expense is what we would expect it to see, the total expense, but I've reallocated based on, where the property is, if it's in public works or if it's in police. Here, I just reallocated it to make better sense.
With some other funds, we may see it go down.
Yes.
because it came up here.
Do you have a rough amount of what our actual total increase for those insurance lines ended up being from last year? Well, but I mean, across all funds, a percentage, what our percentage?
Yeah,
increase?
it went up about 15% this year.
One other question I had, if nobody else had another one, I noticed lease payments for the copy machine across all funds seem to be up quite a bit. Has there been any research done into buying out the copy equipment versus leasing it? Would that be a more cost-effective solution? Maybe, I don't, it just seems like we're paying a lot for the copy machine.
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. The previous city recorder who was here looked at that, and I think his finding was that it cost the city less to go with a lease. But I mean, that's something we can look at again.
And does our lease include supplies for the copy machine, such as toner, paper, and like that?
Yes, it
Probably
does.
services too when we mess it up.
Yeah, it does.
I know my company leases a copy
Yeah,
machine too,
we
so I
do.
just was wondering if it just seems like a
Because of
lot.
the
So,
service.
Yeah.
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 Any other questions on materials or services before we go on? Then there's the capital outlay requirements that are planned for the year. Building improvements and repair, equipment and furniture acquisition, and electronic equipment. All stayed relatively.
We're on page 7, is that where we're at?
The bottom of page 6. Just finished up on bottom. Did Mickey have a question in the chat?
Get into it. Give me a second.
Nikki says, I've always felt that leasing is better because of the experienced maintenance and replacement of printers if needed.
I don't disagree. Okay, next page, page 7 now. Now we are on to the requirements for the police department out of the general fund. Again, personnel, you'll see line items for city manager, reporter, and assistant again, as well as our chief lieutenant and our officers. Any questions on the personnel?
I noticed that the overtime went up, but there a reason for that? What is it?
The school district in their payments also cover some of our overtime cost. Last year, we tried to absorb that within our budget without increasing that because we had some additional resources. This year, I felt the 4 officers that use overtime each would average potentially about $5,000 each. That's why it went to 20. 5,000 of that cost though is also refunded in grant reimbursements if we use that time for traffic overtime.
Especially in the medical and dental, it's all gone up 1%, but you're dropping it here by 6%.
Yeah, we've had a lot of, well, not a lot. We've had some turnover in the police department. We had the retirement of our police administrative assistant. And we've been fortunate to not have to fill it full time at this time. We had Kristen Quinn come back. She was reserved. She went on maternity leave. She agreed to come back part-time, so we don't have medical benefits for her. And then we've got an officer who is waiting to get into the academy, so she needs to use her time, so they share the position equally. But having said all that, we've had new officers come whose family situations is different. So a full family employee costs more than an employee who is single. So
How many officers do we have?
the office.
How many officers do we have?
6.
6.
Including yourself.
Yes.
I only recognize 3 when I drive around town.
Definitely have some new ones within
Yeah.
the last.
Yeah, Kristen is filling a half-time position. She was a police officer. She went on leave. And when she came back, she's filling an administrative assistant position half-time. But she has certifications to be a police officer. And so she's continuing to maintain her certifications and requirements through the Department of Public Safety Standards and Training. And so she's really in the office doing stuff, but it's been a tremendous improvement, I guess, for customers coming in because they're actually dealing with an officer that can ask questions and respond. So FTE is just a 6 full-time sworn officer. We're just benefiting from her being a previous officer.
I have never seen her. I've only seen the male officers.
We have 2 female officers.
And hers, is it the same as what it was on the
Yes.
previous sheet?
Yeah, you're gonna see that across the budget. Well, it went down. It's actually a better situation.
Any other questions? Okay. So then we have materials and services for the police department out of the general fund. Right off of line 15, I noticed that we went from,
I'm sorry, I had these real
Yes.
bad. I wanted to go to our office, our officers, our lieutenants. Is that the wages for police chief 102? Is that merit increase you got, or what are those? Why did that number go from 95 to 102?
That's the COLA that I
That's
budgeted.
COLA.
Mhm.
Okay. Is there any merit in that? Is there a
Mm-mm.
salary schedule included? We give
He-
salary schedule raises? You know?
Yes, everybody's on a salary schedule except for the city manager position.
That's what I wanted to know. So they do get a raise throughout time. right?
Yes.
I just wanted to know that. Thank you. Oh, go
Any
ahead.
other
No,
questions
no,
on
I
the
did
personnel?
answer it. I wanna know why I tried.
so line 15, starting on the materials and services. I noticed we went from no planned budget for ordinance enforcement to 5,000. You get a little explanation of.
Yeah, we've been increasing, well, we actually have increased a lot of, have received a lot more complaints regarding ordinance enforcement. And so our methodology, we've kind of added a additional layer to that, in which we make personal contact with the complainant or the violator that the person filed the complaint on. And then we are mailing correspondence to them. Sometimes that through certified mail. In addition to that, we have some properties that we may need some legal advice on. And there may be some properties potentially down the road that may require some abatement. For example, I'll just use like a field that doesn't get mowed and it's tall grass and it's a fire danger. And if we have to like contract out with Public Works isn't able to do it, and we get a warrant from the judge to enter the property to abate the ordinance and mow the grass, then we have to pay somebody for that. We've just never had any expenses for that before. So kind of moving forward, I thought it might be a good idea to reserve some funds for that we haven't ever budgeted before. And if we don't have any associated costs with abatement, then we wouldn't spend that money.
Thank you. Going further down the list, general other lines of maintenance, repair, software, dues and membership, insurance again, training conferences all stayed relatively in line. The fuel definitely stood out to me. We noticed fuel jumps across multiple funds. We all know fuel is just going outrageous. Is part of because in the police fuel fund seemed to be the biggest increase out of all. Is part of that due to replacing our vehicles with the SUVs? Are they more gas hogs than the sedans were?
They're about the same. Actually, the SUVs get a little better gas mileage than the Dodge Charger does. It's a V8 engine. And the new SUVs aren't V8 or 6. I based that on what I've been hearing, and Susan and I met and talked about what our average mile was, what the average officer puts on a car, divided that by each officer and what the year would be. We've been able to, every year we tend to lose somebody. And so this also includes every officer being solo, working, averaging about 10,000 miles to 12, depending on the driving a year. And figuring in gas prices, what they were a little while ago, not what they are today. If that increased to what they're saying is $10 a gallon, we're gonna have a somewhat discussion about how we could continue to drive. But so that's based upon about $4.50 a gallon expenditure per officer per year at 6 officers.
Electric cars,
What's that?
electric cars.
Well, actually, you may have a proposal down the road to the council about something electric, so.
I'm curious, do police officers take the cars home? They don't see them parked around.
And we park them down at the garage and the lieutenant and I do take a vehicle home for on-call status.
2 cars leave to go home.
What's that?
2 cars leave Jervis to go home at night?
Yeah, the lieutenant and I are assigned a vehicle for on-call. So when after hours, if we need to come in, we can respond directly to the scene.
Insurance and bonding went down.
Yeah, that's for the reason I stated in the prior department discussion.
Any other questions on the materials part of the police budget? Then we have capital outlay, the ballistic vests and tactical equipment stayed even. Firearms and weapons did increase by a significant amount. Is that a replacement of weapons or issuing new to new officers?
Replacement of, replacement of AR as well as tasers. There is going to be a proposal to the council at some point. Is that right? Talk about use of ARPA funds because that could be allocated towards public safety. And so once we present that to the council, if the council decides to use some of the ARPA funds for public safety, like a lot of other cities are doing, then a lot of these expenses here would be actually reduced. But that's kind of just a replacement plan, considering that we wouldn't be using ARPA funds to help fund those items. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. And then the next line down, the equipment and furniture acquisition. Similar, just different types of it.
Yeah, the most significant expense on that is the AED devices.
Oh, right.
And so we've wanted to have a goal of have one in each of one of our vehicles, as well as one at the police department and one at City Hall. So we've looked at, and because of the additional resources, we felt that it was a good time this year to maybe budget and purchase all those.
And then line 39, the electronic equipment.
That's replacing 2 computers in the station, as well as the GTACs, which were bought 5 years ago, which is the computers in the car. That would replace 2 Dell computers plus 2 GTACs in the vehicles. So we have one fairly new one that we bought last year, and the other ones are recommended to be replaced every 5 years. Again, if we allocate or propose to the council and they review that and approve of that, then the ARPA funds those are going to be included in the ARPA fund expenditure. And if the council approved of that, then that line item would not be used in the general fund.
Any questions from the budget committee on these expenditures out of the general?
Before we move on, I need to point out something kind of significant that I hate to admit, but on line 40 of that page 7, there's no total for total capital outlay. It should be a total of 39,000. That does impact the ending fund balance that you'll see ahead in the budget on page 12. The ending fund balance that you see is 136,000 roughly will be reduced by that 39,000.
The unappropriated part of it?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's the same error, and I apologize, on page 10, the total materials and services formula didn't carry forward. So that's another 8,300. So the ending fund balance that you have on page 12 is reduced by those two amounts to 88,000, roughly 89, rounded up. So I apologize for that. I caught that after the packets went out.
So on page 10, what is the total? Carry down?
Page, oh, yes, 8,339.
And that's line 17.
Yes.
So real quick on page 7, then the 39,000, about, is that the full 39,000-ish, what you guys are expecting to ask us for on the ARP, out of the ARPA? That full
A
39,000,
portion, well,
or
actually,
a portion of it.
yeah, yes, so all that 39,000, if you guys decided to use ARPA funds for, would qualify under this. There's actually going to be a bigger ask for you to consider,
Okay.
kind of a menu item, because it's what, $682,000. So,
Right. I was just curious. If,
yeah.
they
Or
said-
is that the water one? too? Used for water.
Yeah.
Any other questions on page 7? Next part of the general fund is street department. Again, broken out into materials and services and capital outlay. For sake of time, do you have any questions on any specific line items? Yes.
Refuel here. What the same.
Yeah, that was probably based on actual expenditures where we haven't been up to what's been budgeted. So I figured with what we're actually spending with the increase in fuel, the 2,300 still covers it.
Insurance body again is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just been reallocated throughout the budget. But again, the total cost of the insurance is a little more than what was last year,
15%.
50%.
Yes.
Line. So line 9. You're not bringing over the adopted budget of 100 over into the proposed budget.
Oh, right, I didn't get the 100 over there. If the budget committee wants, we can include that 100.
Have we used the 100 this year? for miscellaneous?
We haven't used it the last 2 years and not this year either. So that's why I didn't carry it over.
What can it be used for?
We want to make it a 0 and instead of bringing over the 100.
What could it be used for? Is that your question, Joey?
Yes.
It's just anything that doesn't fall in any of the other line items. I mean,
That's zero.
there's been nothing, so
Yeah, I was gonna say, it
there's
sounds like we
there's
just
probably
need
not a
zero
use
there
for
then.
it. Yeah,
So, but it's still there, right? $100.
no, not for next, not for next year.
So,
Okay, any other questions on the street department part of the general fund?
So, what did I miss? I was in the restroom, line 13.
No, we did not.
Oh, we haven't gotten there yet. Sorry.
John?
Oh, as far as equipment,
Yeah, that's $1,000 on line 13.
that would pretty much cover weed eaters, hedgers, lawnmower maintenance, oil changes, you know, those type of items would fall into
But it
that.
wasn't budgeted before. Who,
13 was, oh, there was nothing in 21, 22.
That,
Well, it's broke because everything's broken out into 3 or 4 funds. If you just look at one, you think that's not enough, but then you might go to the water or wastewater, there might be $4,000 there. And, You know, so looking at one page doesn't always give you the final total.
Right,
Any other questions on page 8? The street. Then page 9, Parks Department, same out of the general fund. Again, we have materials and services, maintenance, repair, insurance, utilities, supplies. And then we have another 5,000 for some equipment.
our insurance increases there. Right? And the other things that went down.
Yeah.
So,
Well, because Susie said that she reallocated it. Right, so just determining that we not as much time or part of the insurance was utilized for, say, for instance, the street fund, whereas more parts of those insurance costs actually pertain to the parks.
Yeah.
does this include putting lights down on the park? Is that later on?
That cost is not included in this budget. There's a couple of things that I wanted to say. Those lights fall in the public safety category, and so that would be part of our proposal to the council is to include that light project in the ARPA fund proposal. The other possibility is we're partnering with the school district for that grant writer, and she's looking for resources to cover the cost of a light project in conjunction with providing lights and other amenities on the school walking trail that they're working on. So this $5,000 is for the basketball hoop area. Yeah, yeah.
There's no way to put the lights in to make sure it gets done. You're just gonna hope that we get a grant or something.
Yeah, the money is allocated in the ARPA fund, so I guess I'm feeling fairly confident that the council will approve that proposal. Yeah, I understand.
It's a safety thing and.
Yeah,
people
I
can
understand.
that, so.
Yeah, and if we're successful in getting grant money, we can do a supplemental budget to put it back in this department and fund.
So then my question is there wouldn't be any money in our fund at all for anything like that. I mean, like you say, in the general fund that we could move over there to cover that. Because why I'm saying that is we've been trying to get some things done.
Mhm.
And we keep pushing it down the road. Well, we're gonna look for a grant. We gotta do that down the road ways. We're gonna do this. I'd like to start moving on some of this stuff. So I'm thinking, why don't we move some money out of the general fund to cover that?
Well, if,
People do just want some things, they want lights, they want a skate park, they want things, I think we need to try to prioritize them. I'm with John, we need to move money, if we need to move money. We can start and happen.
Yeah, I know
Well-
we can't wait forever on this stuff. And people want things. We need to give them what they want, if we can do it. The way I look at it, it seems like we're running high on a lot of our monies that we have, and I don't see why we can't move something around to make sure this stuff happens.
well, that might be an option, but I mean, we're not gonna have the council discussion tonight about the ARPA funds, but what is your feeling in general, about using ARPA funds for lighting in the park for public safety purposes? It would be an eligible expense and it frees up money, without having to move money in the general fund.
Because how much was the lights estimate?
$1,000.
7,000, as you said?
No, three, I
Three.
think, 2 or
Three,
3,000.
well,
It wasn't mine.
The $3,000 price tag was for minimal lighting. If you want to light up the whole park, and if we're going to think about really public safety, solar, unless you spend high dollars for solar lights, some of them only have a 6-hour window of power before they have to recharge. And in the dead of winter, you don't have 6 hours. So the lights are going to go out at midnight? Then the park is dark from midnight till 6 a.m. or
What
till
time
they
does the
recharge.
park close?
well, the park closes at 9, but the minute you start lighting them up, you're basically saying the park is usable more because it's lit. So,
Even if it's closed, it's still dark and it's not like we have gates that close it off, so.
right, so it's accessible, but it's not lit. But if we start lighting it up, then we either have to go back and change the ordinance where, what is it, open till 10? You know, that's something that the council will have to address.
So,
So,
but we're, in general, we're looking at what, like 5,000 to 7,000 in lights on a like
it
higher.
could be 10. By the time, you know, with prices of steel and everything to put it in, and if we go electric, they mean the pavilion and the lift station have an electric meter, so you could draw power off of that. But in the farther end of the park, there is no power. So that solar would kind of work there. But once those cells go dead, then that end of the park goes dark.
Mickey says, we definitely need lights in the park. We have spoken about it before and agreed that it's important, especially because our kids tend to go after the park is closed. In an emergency situation, they would be valuable. We have had an issue in the past with someone being beat up after dark.
I concur, Mickey.
Okay, and I agree also, so I guess we just have to move on with this, but this needs to be a priority for what I'm saying.
So,
Well, and I, from a citizen point of view, I agree 100%. I think the lights in the park is a vital thing. But our ARPA funds are $680,000. Is that correct? Right? If what John's saying is accurate, right? If we need to be looking at better than the 3,500 cheap light option, if we need to be looking at the $7,000 to $10,000 long-term really good option, right? That seems to me, from a citizen point of view, that the ARPA funds would be great to actually make sure we get lights that are good and will serve us really well.
There's no one disagreeing with that.
And I
I'm
don't,
ready to go.
I don't want to go cheap and then have it, okay, 6 months from now, the lights are junk. Now we gotta go spend more money.
I think you get cameras included in that too, John. I mean, that's another day discussion, but honestly, I would like to see more spent on citizens, on the citizens, what their asks are, and their asks are cameras, lights. I don't think that's out of our reach.
Are the ARPA
funds restricted time? I mean, do we only get them for 5 years or?
Yeah, so the ARPA funds need to be obligated by the end of 2024, and we need to have them spent by the end of 2025.
It's a good project
So-
to invest in.
That's your problem.
Yeah, so I have a suggestion. If you want to include some funds in this general fund, if you want to add to that $5,000, I do have included in the contingency, I have a $50,000 contingency. We could reduce that by 10,000 and change the equipment and furniture to 15.
And then
So-
if we end up getting grants or decide on ARPA, then it just goes back to contingency at the end of the year.
Right,
You put in there.
So that
Right.
would take it up to what?
15.
And that way we can move quicker rather than waiting on grants.
Yeah.
I'm good
So
with
that
that.
everybody's on the same page. The contingency is page 12, line 17.
Yes.
Thank you. So that would go down to 40.
So if we reduce that by 10, we're down to 40.
Mhm. So could we
And
get
add
a,
the 10 to line 8 of page 9. Make that to 15.
could we get a consensus to do that?
Could we get a verbal consensus?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Okay, verbal consensus.
Thank you.
achieved.
Denise, you got that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
It looks like Mickey will have to be exiting the meeting, if I'm reading that correct.
Oh, yeah, she needs to get back to my stuff. Or
She's
staff,
asking,
I'm
is there-
sorry.
Is there any big discussion that needs to happen before she leaves? Was there any other points further on in the budget that was a important topic that we should involve Councilor Wagner in before she has to leave? I'm not saying anything, Mickey. Thank you for joining us while you could tonight. Hope the rest of your night goes well. Okay, if there's no other discussion on the Parks Fund, page 9, we can move on to page 10. This is our court portion of our expenses out of the general fund. Again, part of some of the city personnel is broken out for the court court duties that they perform. And then we have software, dues, insurance.
Professional
Questions?
services. Jumped up.
Yeah, we use an interpreter during our municipal court, and the costs have been a little higher than what we've budgeted for in the past. So this is based on actual expenditures.
What is on hers?
Mhm.
It's been, it looks like it jumped up 4%. And hers, well, it's come down by half.
Yeah, you're gonna see that with PERS throughout the budget, and that's because I budgeted at a higher percentage, a higher rate last year than what we're actually paying this year and into next. Pardon?
What are you actually saying?
It depends on what tier people are in. Yeah.
Okay, take time. Any other questions on the municipal court portion of the general fund?
Sorry, to answer the medical piece of that, we carry two different plans, one's Kaiser and one's Regents. The Kaiser plan did not increase, Regents did. And so the employees that are in this budget are on the Kaiser plan.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just out of curiosity, can they have a yearly opt-out vote and change on that? So it would be
Yes.
done by the year anyway. They
Yeah.
don't have it like it's a 6 month,
We have open enrollment every October.
it's
For-
once a year.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, no other questions? Page 11. This goes back to Councilor Foreman's question around the pie chart, the mayor and city council portions of the fund. The council stipends and the training and conferences, again, being the biggest portion of it, but otherwise the carryover of the budget is pretty consistent. Any questions on mayor or council portion of the general fund budget? I don't see any. Page 12. This is the summary of all the requirements for the general fund and our totals. There is some significant transfers that on starting with line 11. We have a transfer to the park fund of $42,000. Again, in addition to the police vehicle fund, which has been relatively consistent. No transfers to the water fund. 4th of July fund looks like is consistent with previous years of what the 4th of July typically has cost us, other than the last two, obviously, because of COVID. And then again, we agreed on line 17 to reduce the 50 to 40. And the unappropriated balance for line 21 should now be, it was approximately 89,000. I didn't get the exact total.
88,914.
80,009.
And what line is that?
21. And that was because of the errors in the totals on pages, I believe it was 10 and 7.
Okay, I got that. What was the total? 88 what?
88,914.
914?
Yes. 88,914.
How come, so is this public works vehicle replacement fund? There's other places it's in the budget too, because that doesn't seem like you're giving them very much money to replace.
Well, that's a new line item.
Yeah.
That-
3,500 though?
Well, that's going to be a yearly cost, so, and it's just not vehicle, it is also equipment, so instead of, if I use my big zero turn, which right now probably has a price tag of $20,000, instead of having to come to the council for that one-time fee, we've started this fund, so every year we're putting money in there, so even though there may be not enough to purchase the vehicle, 50% could be there, 75% could be there, so then I only have to come to that other 25% to replace.
I thought it was just low and you put it in. I thought it was kind of low. I thought maybe a little more.
Okay, I'll take more.
If I had my way done, I would get one. They're all over town,
Yeah, but I think there's also parts in there, it's more like, I think it's a 10,000 total.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
So
split.
it's spread out.
It's
Yeah.
spread out
I
over
know,
the-
I saw a big chunk in the waste.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so, but I just wanted to, since it's, want to make sure that.
Any other questions on the general fund? Not that I see. Okay, so we'll move on to our next major fund, which is the state tax. Again, Susie's provided us a nice verbal overview of the fund. Which again, I appreciate it very much as coming at it from the layman's perspective. Yes.
With all the safe routes to school that we're planning on doing, would any of that tie in with what on our water master plan? Could be done at the same time?
No,
There's no underground stuff that can be worked on when they tear up these sidewalks or put them in, that we could incorporate some water stuff into the assumptions.
No, not for
No.
sidewalks and stuff, that's all pretty much
So there's
surface work.
nothing under there that you need to replace pipes or anything
No.
like that? Is that what you're asking? Oh, okay, yeah, it sounds reasonable to me.
No, we're fortunate our distribution system was upgraded in the early 90s.
Oh,
So it was all the old stuff was removed or just abandoned, and then it was all went in with C900 plastic PVC pipe. So, and in most of the sidewalks, utilities are underneath, there might be power, cable. Most of all our mains are in the streets pretty much.
nice.
It's still up there.
Did not know that, thank you.
Okay. You'll also saw on there that there's a few very big expenditures planned for this year for our streets. Any other questions on the overview before we get into the specifics? Okay. Again, as with the last fund, we're broken into resources and requirements. We're transferring in $890,000. And then we have gas tax. We're expecting $383,000 of grants. And we also get our franchise fees from Mtg. Any questions on our resources to the state tax street? Okay.
I have a question.
Can we answer
Oh, yeah.
this
I'm sorry.
question?
Yeah.
Question first on the interest amount that we're receiving?
yeah, I adjusted that down based on the actual that we received this year. I like to budget in a conservative manner. And so if we receive more interest than 3,500, then that's a good thing. But if I were to leave it at 5,000 and we don't receive that much, then that just means I've over allocated the expenditures.
Going back to page 13, John, on the amounts of money that there for these planned improvements on 8 Juniper and
Mhm.
7 Grove. I don't know, it seems $140,000. What are we doing on Juniper?
8th and Juniper, 100,000 of that is from the SCA, which is a state grant. But that's where they're going to close off 8th Street across from the new development. They're gonna improve Juniper to 7th and widen 7th back out to Ivy. And there's also storm work that needs to be done in there.
Do you think we'll have to add to that amount? Or is that's from them or from us?
The $100,000 is from the state.
Okay.
The rest of it now, prices could change. We might have to put a little bit more towards that improvement,
Yeah,
but
that's what I'm saying.
yeah. And
Looking at that, I'm thinking.
yeah, same thing with Seventh and Grove improvements is sidewalk work from basically the Catholic Church property north to Ivy. And then they're going to widen Grove between 7th and 6th. Improve that street.
Circle the 8 points. Yeah, like, yeah. We should probably do that. Okay.
And didn't you say that you were going on 7th Street from Ivy North?
Yes,
That's included.
on the west side of 7th Street, that will all have sidewalk improvement all the way from the school north to Ivy.
North to Ivy.
Yes,
Right.
and tie into the,
Once you cross Ivy, then what happens on 7th Street then? And I was thinking that you told me you were gonna widen that out.
no, well, Grove is gonna be widened between 7th and
Right.
6th.
Right.
7th Street will stay the same and you just have a sidewalk improvement, so there'll be kids that can walk and not have to walk in the street.
I was thinking you said something about widening that street.
And
That-
this one's up for the 8th and Juniper.
That's the 8th and Juniper that will be
Right, that one
widened.
there, but no, that one there, I understand, it's the one from Juniper to Ivy. There's a short strip there where it's gonna come in from 8th Street. and then go
Right,
to Ivy.
But 8th Street's going to be barricaded off, so you cannot go
I
in,
understand that.
right?
I-
Oh, you want to know,
told me that that was gonna be widened.
I don't, no, there was no plan to widen 8th Street.
Oh, that's what you're talking about. That's okay.
Not 8th
That's
Street,
why
7th
not.
Street. So from you'd have the, from,
Yeah, 7th is going to be improved and Juniper will be improved,
okay.
but the section between Juniper and 8th to the south will stay the same.
So we've already discussed resources, so we're now on page 15. Requirements to the street fund, again. Appropriated amount for personnel services. Materials and services. And then capital outlay. With capital outlay, obviously seeing where a lot of our increases are. Professional services underlined 16 also was a significant increase. Is that also part of the planning for urban growth?
Yeah,
So that would be then
well-
up to the council whether they decide to move forward with those planning services.
well, it's not actually for urban growth. Those include the engineering fees, the surveying fees that go
Oh,
along
for
with
the
these
improvements
projects.
that
Yeah,
were listed on the summary.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So the 3 projects listed on page 15 add up to, I know that it includes grant, we've got grants for it, but it's 545, 572 is what those 3 added up to
Mhm.
equal. So the sidewalk street improvements is 650. Is there additional, is that just the extra buffer for additional street projects that we might need to do? Like, I'm just wondering what the difference is. I do now.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at a separate document with my notes.
Okay,
I added a 15% contingency for those projects, which
Okay.
includes 84,000.
This urban growth, this money you're talking about spending on that. What fund does that come from again? I just.
Well, that was my mistake. I misspoke about that. So that was out of the general fund. That's not this line
You're
on.
talking about with Ticket Bond and all this other stuff
Yeah.
to actually even accomplish, right?
Medical and dental must be Kaiser again.
Yeah, it's a mix. We've got 3 employees, so it's a mix of Kaiser and Regents.
Okay. And then the 650 for the street improvements. I think we answered with Diana's question that it was the 3 line items on the summary plus some
Plus a
contingency.
Yep.
In line 23, the overlay crack ceiling, is that for Fifth Street? Or is that-
No, that would be just for general maintenance on the roads we have. The overlay, we looked into overlaying Fifth Street, and at the time it was probably $400,000
the overlay, though?
just to overlay it.
Yeah, but that's not called.
That's not part of that price. No.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I wish I could overlay it for $6,000.
You're talking about, you're not talking about redoing the blacktop.
No. Seal cracking is when you get asphalt that cracks, they come in with a tarry substance, and you'll see it in pavement areas where it's just kind of drizzled into the crack, and that keeps the water from getting into that crack and making that crack bigger. But it doesn't last forever.
No, but the ones I'm talking about, they go over it with a thick substance, and then they go over it again with gravel on
Yeah.
top.
Yeah, that's your chip seal.
Yes, and that seems to last me. But, as far as that Fifth Street goes, I don't know how we're gonna do it. It would be nice and big, because that's been like that for a long time. Okay, well, anyway, we'll talk about that later.
Priority.
Any other questions on page 15? Page 16 is in the summary. You have a bike fund that has been continually building up.
Is that a bike path? Where is that? Is that along the railroad? Or
It's-
what was gonna be planned to go to the railroad?
There was a good summary on one of the other pages about the bike fund further on in the budget. I don't recall where, but there was, we had the same questions when we reviewed it. There was a really good summary. Yeah, yeah. Any other questions on the state tax street fund? We'll move on to water. Okay. Page 17, no?
Not the only major projects on the water.
Nothing planned for this year.
We do last year. We had a water plan done in. How much did that cost the city to have that plan made? Just out of curiosity.
To upgrade the water master plan.
Yeah, from Hector Tech. How much was that?
Yeah, I don't have that number in front of me, but I can get that for you later.
Please, if you would. There's reading the recommendation, it doesn't seem like we've moved very much on what they said.
Is the water back? No, what is that?
Back trailer?
Yeah,
What it
that
is?
one?
No, we don't.
That's the purchase.
That's the purchase a used one, and it's broken out over 3 funds, I think.
So then we'll start sweeping the streets.
No, that's not for sweeping streets. That's for vacuuming out catch basin,
Right, okay.
meter
that's what I thought.
boxes.
You said we were looking at a used trailer?
Yes.
You currently hired that out there.
Normally, no, we've rented one. But it runs about, the last time we rented one, it runs about $1,000 a week. And it wasn't the best piece of equipment. We had some issues.
Rentals normally aren't.
I know,
It's time to get your own. That
that's,
would save us in the long run, wouldn't it?
yes.
Good investment.
The hard part's finding one that is used in good shape and has not been a rental. Because you go to Pape or Ditch Witch, and a lot of the equipment they're selling, oh, no, it's out right now. Well, the minute they say that, it's a rental. So I'm trying to find one that was, either owned by another city and they went with a big back truck or whatever. So that we get one with the least amount of hours as possible, and one that's been maintained relatively well. So, and I'm looking at auctions and
What, this is split up over the funds. What total amount are you looking at?
was it 50 or 40
I'm sorry, I didn't.
for the back trailer?
No,
Vacuum trailer.
Oh, I think we're planning on 50.
50, yeah.
Okay, as was indicated on the summary page, the vast majority of this fund comes from the user fees for our water system. So on page 18, when we look at the resources, we're transferring in 232,000. And then the bulk of the rest of the resources come from those user fees at 377,150, which is an increase over last year due to the increase of our rates that was adopted. Any questions on the resources for the water fund?
Well, that also goes up a little because of the new homes too, right?
Connection fees go down. Connection fees went down.
Oh, right, because there were more homes built last fiscal year than there will be this one.
They're almost done over there, right? Like,
There's
they have just a handful.
presently, I think, 9 homes that aren't sold. And their plan is to be completely done with the development by December.
Yes.
That'd be the last development in Jervis. For a while.
Any large size development, yes. There's no more land that's big enough within our urban growth boundary or within the city limits.
We have to get farmland or whatever. But just on a curiosity, just a question. If we don't have any more growth, could our money that we have put up be spent to upgrade our system and make it better for who's here?
When you mean upgrade our system?
You know, fix pipes, the things, fund the water department a little better so that it makes it better for our citizens or. I mean, do
Well,
we
as
have to?
far as the infrastructure is in really good shape, so I don't know what you mean about improving.
If we didn't use the money to grow outward, if we decided to not go, if the community decided they didn't want to go with urban growth, where would you use those funds that we have? Just money, do we have money put up, right?
There's money put in the budget for maintenance and stuff, but there's no money put in
No, so
for.
we're kind of hemorrhaging for the water. But I'm just thinking on these, so we don't have any money for that big.
No, that would be part of, once urban, let's say we bring in a chunk of land for urban growth. Then that would be part of the developer's cost if it were to be built on. It's no different with Ivy Woods. They put all the water lines in, the sewer lines, the storm lines, sidewalk curbing, that's all part of their cost. The only
But
thing,
to upgrade our ponds and stuff like that, we don't
That's-
have money for that.
that's wastewater. That's a
Yeah, but
different
we
fund.
have to have wastewater to have more housing, right?
That has to be upgraded too.
Yeah.
And the water system technically would have to be upgraded, but if you start going out, the system that we have now, you can't really add to it. So you basically, let's say they want to bring in a chunk of land west on Douglas out into Farmfield. The way our system's designed, they would have to build another water system at that end of town with a well, reservoir, filters, pumps to take care of that demand, because
Yeah.
our size is to the point where you can only put so much water through 6-inch pipe.
Sure.
So basically, any major expansion for the city, then the infrastructure will have to be,
That's
built
gonna be
and
very
improved.
costly.
but a lot of, it depends on the development and how big the development is.
Thank you.
So, but to further on the mayor's question is, from your point of view, our current infrastructure with our current size city is very adequate for our needs. We don't have major improvements that are required for our
I would
current
say the
system,
only
current
thing that needs
needs.
to be done in the next year or two is to upgrade the pumps in the existing water plant.
Yeah.
And, that would be installing a VFD, which is variable frequency motor. And right now, the way our system operates, there's 3 pumps, it's pneumatic. We have a 7.5, a 15 horse and a 50 horse electric motor. The motors work off pressure. So we run basically 50 PSI to 70 PSI. Once the system hits 70 PSI, all the pumps shut off. Then as the pressure draws down, they come back on sequentially. With the VFD, you would not have that. You'd have a pump running all the time, but it kind of like a car engine, it will idle up and idle down to the demand of the water in the system. So you don't have that cutoff. Because with electric motors, every time they shut off to fire them back up, you burn more energy than when they're running. So that would save in energy, and it would also maintain a more constant pressure in the system. And that, and the price tag in there was estimates of $200,000 between the pump.
I'm gonna pick your brain for a while because it's got my insurance.
I call the governor.
No, they're in Salem.
No,
Yeah, like my son. Oh, God, I got you.
Did that answer your question, Mayor?
Yes, no, yes, sir.
Okay, if no other questions on the resources, we'll look at our requirements in the water fund. Okay, again, as previous, broken out into personnel services, divided, prorated for our different city staff. Any questions on personnel? Okay. Materials and services. Good decrease in soccer maintenance. I'm guessing again, that's part of your proration of how the soccer is actually allocated with the different funds. The fuel increase, as we saw across all funds. Drop in our insurance again because of the reallocation. Any other questions or comments on the materials and resources or
Yeah.
services for the?
922, I'm guessing chemicals, just because chemical prices have increased.
Yes. Every time I turn around, I'm getting another email.
Substantially, no.
Yeah.
That can be enough.
It will be, yeah, unless they do it incrementally, you know, and it's going up. It's not like, it's kind of like gasoline, except it never comes down.
Yeah, I would say it only goes.
So they just raise it, you know, 15 cents a gallon here, 9 cents a gallon for this chemical. Then you have delivery charges. So normally when I order chlorine, or I get it at the wastewater plant and the water plants, I'm only paying one delivery charge. So
928. For equipment. Furniture.
Is that part of
Yeah.
the back trailer?
Let me go to my notes.
yeah,
Yeah, the back,
That's why I thought it was.
yes.
yeah,
Back trailer.
This fund's portion of the back trailer was, I think, the biggest part of what that.
15,000 or something.
18, I think it was, yeah.
And the setup cost for the city hall generator is in here too.
yes, yeah, that's what I was gonna add. I've budgeted for the installation of the generator. I've split the installation cost between water and wastewater. I put in 12.5. I think that's gonna be kind of high, but that's good. We won't spend it, so it'll stay in the water fund.
Any other questions on our expenditures out of the water? Okay. Page 20 again is just the summary. Page 21 is the backflow. Sorry.
On page 20, it says you might want to fix the budget for next year in 2021 or 2022. 2023.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. The backflow program is page 21. Requirements are staying pretty even. Page 22 is the summary of the total fund. You have a pretty nice chunk in unappropriated for some of those unanticipated costs. Any questions on the water fund?
All right, I have just a general question on the funds, Susie.
Mhm.
So, like, you put in a operating contingency in each fund, but then you have unappropriated funds. Does that kind of act as an extra contingency? Like, how does that work?
So that is how the budget law is set up. Let's see. The expenditures that are allocated on these other detail sheets, these are what they call appropriations. They can be, I guess, assigned to certain accounts and shared with different funds. These, what they call unappropriated, what are they calling it? Unappropriated expenses, I guess. These are like your transfers, debt payments, anything that's not split up. So trying to find it. Or the not allocated piece, sorry, that's what you mean, right?
Yeah, so I'm looking at like, so on page 22, I'm looking at like, got your operating contingency, right, on line 24, and then we have an unappropriated ending fund balance that's left over after you've done everything else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
so we have
what happens with
24
that
and
money?
25, right? Because I think that's part of what Susie was talking about.
Oh.
25 is the not allocated. And then there's 28, which is
Right.
the additional
yeah,
unallocated, total unallocated
Ending fund.
beyond.
Right, so so usage wise though, like that 109,000, does it work kind of like a contingency? Because it's not set to be spent anywhere?
yeah, this is the projected ending fund balance that will be carried over to the fiscal year after this one that we're budgeting
Okay.
for.
So it's more of a like for future use.
Yeah, this is saying if we collect the revenues that we think we're gonna collect, and if we spend the expenditures the way we've budgeted,
Okay,
then we'll end up with 109,863.
okay,
But it never works out that way.
right,
So this is just our best
okay. But
estimate
so
of.
it's kind of the buffer that you give yourself
Mhm.
for each fund is that, like, okay, this is our give or take $100,000 essentially.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that makes more sense. I was just trying to figure out, I was like, well, if we have that much, why do we only have contingency of 15,000? You know,
oh,
that makes sense though.
yeah.
Susie, in the middle column underneath the capital outlay for your loan, you have principal due 12/1/20.
Yeah, thank you. I caught that.
Okay.
I'll change that. I'll change it to 12/1/22. Thank you.
12/1/23.
No, because the first payment will be due this year, December of this year. These dates here.
Any further questions on the water body before we move on to wastewater? Wastewater summary. The biggest part of the news for there was, of course, the damage to our tree farm and all that has gone through with that, with the FEMA. We are on track with the FEMA application. Everything's still going smooth
Yes.
with that.
Yep, I just found out today that all the money is obligated, meaning that now we're just waiting from the money from the state. And then, of course, once the work is done out at the tree farm, that money will filter in. It's still going to take some time, but I would expect that we'll see it within this next fiscal year.
And then again, portion for the vacuum trailer and the generator.
You start having a little.
For what?
But
Do you think there's any big projects, is what I'm hearing, that we need to be playing for that we're not for wastewater?
Not in this cycle.
Yeah, the $1 million that we got from Marion County ARPA, we're going to use that towards upgrading what did I just say? The force main,
Yeah.
the transfer pump, aeration system, and there's a third component. Maybe I said it. Anyway, the total projected cost of that project is 1.5 million. $1 million of it will be covered with the ARPA funds. Yeah, it actually takes care of most of what's identified in the short-term list on the capital improvement plan.
Page 24, resources into the water fund. Transferring in 161,000. Our user fees have gone up from 365,750 to 403,100. And lower connection fees again, like we saw in the last fund, because fewer houses being built in this next fiscal year. The tree farm, obviously that was a huge part of this last budgetary cycle and is a significantly less portion of this, and that 97 is then all going to be basically refunded then from our FEMA funds.
Yeah. That's the amount we expect.
Any other questions on resources coming into the wastewater? Yes, John.
Talking about the repayment of the principal and the interest. That loan, or that is, when's that due to be paid off?
That'll be paid off in fiscal year 24, 26, I believe. Or 24, 25, I'm sorry. We- Yes, 3 more payments.
So on page 23, John, the bottom paragraph on the left-hand side, I think answers.
Oh, yeah.
That was from the 2014 resolution for the loan that we took out in 2014. So we paid off in 24, 25. Okay, no other questions? Page 25, the requirements for the wastewater fund. Again, appropriated portions for the personnel. Material and services. Chemicals, again, pretty big increase, but as we already heard the explanation for in the water fund.
You think trenches are going down?
Yeah, last year was, these are for the credit card fees that we pay on the transactions for people using their cards. So last year was the first year we started accepting credit cards. And so the 2,500 was a rough estimate of what the fees would be. They turned out to be less, so I was able to budget less.
Drop insurance.
Mhm.
Then we have capital outlay. Significantly less budgeted amount for equipment. Are we just thinking that our needs are going to be a little bit less than what we budgeted last year?
Yeah.
For line, sorry, 28.
Yeah,
We
let
went
me
down from 51 to 32.
take a look at my list. Getting. Yeah, it's the back trailer is part of this. We budgeted for a new toolbox. The installation for the generator here at City Hall, split with the water fund. And a
So
utility.
did we just over budget last year then?
Last year, I think we included a generator.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
The generator for the water, for the wastewater, or for here?
For the wastewater.
Okay.
For the
Yeah.
wastewater, but that was in last year's budget.
Yeah.
It's on order and on its way.
Right.
It's on back order.
No, they just gave me, I think I ordered it last October and they gave me a delivery date of this September.
Ours is different.
Yeah, that one,
I was taking a while, right?
they all,
One of them was.
that was mine.
Yeah, it was his.
It's not coming out of the ship, it's back out.
I hope not.
The tree farm rebuild. And we know that most of that expenditure has already taken place. And then we have the $1 million in also from the FEMA that will be repaid from the FEMA fund. If I'm correct.
The million is. the-
Oh, that $1 million construction was at the ARPA.
It was through Marion County grant. It was a Marion
Oh.
County grant, their ARPA funds. Yeah.
Yes, right. Okay, got it. Top paragraph on the right hand side.
I have a comment. We were talking about the generator for the lagoons being on back order. We're still gonna have that expense in 22, 23, and it's not included in this 32,000. So I would like to suggest taking, I don't know, probably just to be on the safe side, 50,000 out of the unappropriated ending fund balance and increasing line 28 for the equipment by 50, so that we can, for the generator that's coming for the lagoon.
So that's not been paid for
No,
Correct.
until it
Yeah, that's
arrives,
what I was
until it
wondering.
arrives.
So
Okay.
you budgeted
but it never came.
last year, but since it didn't come, we haven't
Yeah.
paid for it, so that money's just roll over.
Yes, it's so far out on back order that I forgot about it. So,
Okay. So we want to
So-
take out of line 13 on page 26, we want to take out, did you say 50?
50, yeah,
Okay.
Yes.
On the next page over, page 26, line 13, unappropriated, we're going to reduce that by 50,000.
And we're gonna move it to.
And we're going to add that to line 28 on page 25, increasing that to 82.25.
and once again, could we get a consensus? Thank you.
Any further questions then on this, the summary? On page 26, summing up the water fund.
On page 26 now, okay. What's a debt service fund?
Page 26. Oh, yeah,
Line 7.
7. Yeah, the transfer of 60,000.
Just curious.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to make sure I'm on the right line. So we have 2 debt service funds, one for water, one for sewer, which we'll see at the end of the budget. This particular sewer debt is a loan that the city took out. It's a long-term loan, like 30 years, I think. So the agreement, part of that loan is we have to maintain a certain ending fund balance. And that 60,000, we just transfer over every year from the wastewater fund to cover the payment so that we can maintain the required ending fund balance in the debt fund. You'll see it better when we get to that actual fund.
Any further questions? Nope. Okay, next fund, storm drain fund. Again, this fund, as the previous 2, are mostly user fees. And we have the associated storm drain improvements that go along with the street improvements from the street fund. For John's explanation earlier. Page 28, resources in, transfer in of 28,582. And then the biggest additional resource will be our user fees, which have increased from 6150 to 65,960. Page 29, the requirements of the storm drain fund. Again, appropriated personnel expenses. We have materials and services. The software, again, because of the reallocation of the total software costs being reallocated differently between funds.
Compared to local budgeting last year.
We have planned 19,500 for storm drain improvements this year. And the rest of the summary as well. Any questions on the storm drain? Next, the Water Reserve Fund. This was established in 2015. Set aside money for capital improvements, repairs, maintenance, and replacement of the city's infrastructure. There are no planned major expenditures for this year, but we're continuing the budgeted amounts. Page 31 is the summary of all of the resources and requirements. Any questions on the water reserve? Let's see. Page 32, Air Fund. This was a new fund that was created in 2019 to provide a budget for our DARE program for our police department. Page 33 is the summary of all resources and requirements. We're starting with $7,805.
New budget line on 4.
Yes, so we're adding the 12,500. That is that from the training that we hosted for the DARE. Was that national or state?
State. It's a national organization puts on it for each state.
Okay.
And we host it.
And Lieutenant West led.
Lieutenant Seibel actually
Okay,
did. Yes,
Lieutenant
yes,
Seibel
yes.
he's still involved then with the DARE.
Yeah, he is the Midwest or Mid United States representative. So he retired and went to do that for DARE. He works from home doing that most of the time. Yeah. And then Lieutenant West has taken over the DARE Oregon coordinator. So actually Lieutenant West will be coordinating the training. So, you know, go ahead.
All that training kind of pays for itself.
Yes, yes. So it's last year, some of the funds came in at the end of the year and kind of carried over into this year, and we didn't have the line item. So that's why you saw the budget resolution was it last month or the month before.
I think it was last month.
That was to allocate those expenditures.
This time we're expecting $12,500 in registration fees, but then we're spending it in supplies.
Correct. Yes.
Supplies is going up considerably.
That's for the.
Yeah, that's basically that difference, right? So last year we only adopted 4,500. This year we're adopting 10,000 more, but we're expecting 12,500 to come in for the fees for that training. So that covers all of those supplies.
I want to make a comment. I was in another meeting yesterday, not related to this, but I was congratulated for the DARE program in Jervis.
Well, thank you.
And I said, yes, we've had it for a couple of years now. It's
Yes,
been going
yes.
really good.
It's doing really
So
good.
I just wanted to comment that. Other people know about Jervis and DARE program.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah.
nice. Thanks for sharing.
Mary, you kind of seem a little puzzled.
No, I'm not.
Okay, 2,000. Oh, that's okay. 2,000 of that supplies is for our own program that we budget for. And the rest of that is for, like Chairman Art said, was for registration fees. So some of that expenses is for our own DARE program that we raise funds to pay for the Sacred Heart program, as well as the Jervis School District program. The rest of that is money in and out to sponsor the training. And we then get to send our officers to for free. So,
Okay.
I
didn't have the question, but thank you.
sorry, I misunderstood what you're just.
No, I have a really bad migraine.
Okay,
My
sorry.
Hearing aids are dead and I'm having a hard time hearing everyone. So I'm trying to pay attention. Oh, sorry. Thank you though.
Any other questions, comments on the DARE fund? Okay. Page 34. The Public Works Vehicle / Equipment Replacement Fund. This is a new fund that the staff is requesting, that we start setting aside money each year for equipment that needs to be replaced. This is what John was explaining a little bit earlier in tonight's meeting, where we saw some funds coming out of the water and the wastewater, all coming into a vehicle replacement fund. So that we're budgeting for it ahead of time and saving up a little bit each year instead of having to expend.
You feel are you hoping for about $10,000 a year will cover the needs we have going forward?
I'm worried it's too low. That number,
Well,
when I look at it, I just. feel like-
I'm looking at, okay, the city might need a new pickup 3 years from now. And it may not be enough unless you guys elect to put more money into that fund. I won't say no. But I mean, a new pickup right now is $43,000.
I understand that, Simon. That's why I'm thinking it's really low.
I'm just trying to get,
Is there a way we could squeeze a little bit more into it? So like you said, it would offset what the cost might be, just a contingency for that.
yeah, that's,
That. I don't know. I'm glad you're doing it. I like that you put it in. I just wish it was more. I do. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
That'd be a really good item to bring for discussion as you're planning for the budget next year.
Yeah.
Perhaps
Yeah,
increasing
I
that yearly.
just see things can happen and I'd like to be more prepared than unprepared. And my thoughts, those might have different, but for me, that's what I think.
Well, and I'm just thinking going forward, it's possible that if we end up with, where we're surplusing things, maybe we can then add it to this kind of a fund so that we can keep it rolling versus because I know that in the past we've done other things with surplus vehicles from like public works and stuff. And so, maybe we can use this as well, because I know like the 4th of July fund got funded by a surplus vehicle. I don't remember what vehicle a number of years ago. So it's like, well, now we have this fund that we can use that for instead.
My dad used to raffle cars.
So, but it's kind of nice just to have the fund so that if we do have extra money.
Page 35 again shows the resources and requirements. We are planning to bring in $10,500 split between the 4 other funds. That 3,000 some odd dollars is coming in from each one of those. Okay. No other questions? Page 36. Similar fund to the previous one. This is for police vehicles. This fund has been in existence prior to this budget. But similar amount, similar methodology where we are budgeting a certain amount each year into the fund for vehicles. So on page 37, we can see that we brought in just under 36,000 from previous years. And we are planning on adding 15 to that from the general fund this year. And then we have the planned requirements. Which again, correct me if I'm wrong, we're not actually planning on buying a new vehicle. This is just the budgeting for that, so that the budget balances.
Yeah.
Correct. Any questions on the police vehicle fund?
Equipment, we're really seeing this for 18,000 that was discussed earlier.
This is to be able to replace, there's no planned expenditures from this fund this year. They're not actually planning on buying equipment out of this fund this year. This is just so that it balances between our resources and requirements.
If there were to be something like an accident and insurance didn't cover some of the costs or something like that, yes.
Like the one for him. Bigger one for him,
Okay.
for that.
Okay, page 38, capital reserve fund. This was another fund established in 2019, dealing with the sale of the old city hall building and the fund created from that sale. So all of the resources into that fund came from that cell. We're transferring in $70,149. And then we have principal and interest resources coming in from the payments on that cell. We have that total resources of 86 then being allocated out in construction costs. Are these going to a specific plan, or is this also just a transfer over of the budgetary?
Yeah, it's just appropriating all the resources in case something comes up.
Basically, we have $86,000 in a fund.
I thought we decided to put that into a fund that we could use where we wanted. Is that the way this is set up?
I think that's how this is set up. It's,
And throw that word construction on there. So,
yeah, that's just the name of the account, but yeah. But it's for the purpose of capital repairs, improvements, maintenance, or replacement of infrastructure. Not tied to any particular one system.
Right, see it retitled, John?
Any other questions on the special fund, capital reserve fund? Okay, page 40. This is a new one that's been up in a lot of discussion over the last number of months in city council. The park fund. The purpose of this fund is for new park development. A significant amount of this fund came as the payment in lieu of building a park within the Ivy Woods subdivision. The city has also received $45,000 from the Marion County Prosperity Initiative.
So, can I just ask a question? When I read that statement, in lieu of parkland, are we obligated to build them a park now? Because we got this money in lieu of the park? I mean, just how it sits with me, do we have to build a park specifically for Ivy Woods now? Literally?
Well, we had this discussion at the last council meeting, and I believe the intent, again, I don't have the information tonight, but I will be following up on it. The intent was to build something that serves that new area. And I read that somewhere. I don't remember if it was Holly's statement, if it was in the code or staff report, the code. I need to go back and.
Okay, I'm just trying to be more specific now and down, because it just stumped me the words. Because I think I've read that. I don't know where though.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just a need to figure it out situation in my head. I'll get back on track, sorry.
Okay, so page 41, we have the breakdown of all the resources coming in or requirements. Again, we have the 71,950 that came in from that Ivywood subdevelopment. We are planning to raise $2,500 from the basketball tournament. The $15,000 in grants. And we are transferring in the $42,500 from the general fund. Our requirements, we have a little bit of supplies planned for, some rental. I believe that is specifically for the 3-on-3 basketball tournament.
And that may not come to light, may or may not, but we do have a backup plan for.
Then the biggest portion of it is capital outlay, again, for park development costs. Again, for those who are active in city council meetings, this is obviously a very ongoing discussion of how we move forward with the primary idea being a skate park, and how we move forward not only legally but morally with the funds we have available to us to actually get a skate park built while still meeting whatever
So
requirements
that's what
or
I'm
needs we
wondering, what
have
the real
from.
ask requirement is after they take money in lieu of. I want to know specifically what we owe them. And I don't think I got that straight yet
Yeah,
here.
and I,
So if we
yeah,
can look at that, because I want to know what we owe them. If it's community park, skate park falls into community in definition. There's community skate parks, there's a whole host of different community parks.
and I think right now, at least from what I've understood, again, just from my perspective outside from what
Yeah.
I've heard, it sounds like it's gonna come down not necessarily as specifically of a legal requirement, but more of what we morally maybe promised to Ivy Woods in lieu of. And
One of the
what
guys
we feel as a
told us
city,
that.
we are kind of best serve our citizens, and whether that's looking more at that side of town, or whether we feel that a skate park will fulfill it, even if the skate park's in a different part of town. I think it's an
People
important
that live
discussion.
there, they would love to have a skate park, bike park, pool park.
Yeah.
They're on board with it. They don't necessarily need a kiddie park. Just some people I talk to and walk and talk that, you know, you need to serve them. So morally, I'm trying to do the right thing. There's no land there to build with.
Right.
No,
It's a
and-
sticky situation.
And I know that, and I don't know if it was 2 years ago, that we were talking about this parks. Because they had, when they built the one over there on Walnut, then we suggested in one of the meetings that we should have one on this side of town. Because there's the kids, you know, they walk over there and there's nothing for them on this side of town. And we did have that one skate park that was here by the tracks. They took that down because that was kind of dangerous, you know, and a lot of kids were getting hurt on that. So when you talk about a skate park, what are we talking about a skate park?
Different ones have them and it would be better built. That was
Yeah,
portable.
that was a horrible.
No,
one,
that was
yeah.
portable and it wasn't built to spec and it would be nice. Speaking of parks and being on this side, you had, there's an empty street over by you, which it would take neighbors to be okay with it. There's an empty street down there. That was looked at, just
Yes.
to put you in the spot. But how would you feel as a neighbor, Ms. Farrar? on something
Oh,
like that?
I would love a park on that side, you know. for the
Yeah,
kids
there's
on
a
that
lot of
side
kids back
to
there. isn't
go
there?
over there and, you know, play basketball, whatever, you know.
Mhm.
Because a lot of the kids, that's what they do here in town, play basketball.
Yeah, when we're talking about upgrading this one right here. So just your input's very important to me and everybody.
Well, yes, I was just
No,
remembering
no,
that
I,
years ago, we had said that we wanted a park on this side of the trash, because
yeah, there's nothing.
nothing, you know.
Nothing
inviting.
We've been trying to look, but the land is so scarce. There's empty streets along here and yours is really the nicest one. Down there, that big lot, you know,
Yeah,
that would be,
it is a big lot.
how do you guys feel about it?
Yes.
Would be the question.
Yeah.
I don't know how, I don't know how I feel about it today.
Okay.
But as the basketball courts have been, so I have boys in my house right now, no girls, they're all gone. And they're like, basketball courts need to be improved. And that's what they
We're
do. They,
trying over here for sure.
yeah, so a skate park, it just seems like liability in my brain.
I think there was some money in there for that.
We're upgrading this, making it double hoop. Like a court. Well, it'll be a little short, but yeah, a short court, but yeah, it'll be able to play both ways. What's the plan? You're getting a green.
I have a question. I feel kind of dumb about this, but now, over here where it's proposed by the budget officer. Then you go down and it says total resources. I don't understand how you can call some of these a resource when you don't have that money. It's not there yet, and it may not ever be there. So how can you call that a resource when it's not there? I don't understand.
Well, you have to think of it more as like a projected resource. So
I
If
can
you'll-
understand that, but to me, I would think you should have another line that said projected instead of putting it in this. So it's going into the budget.
Yeah.
But it's not really there.
yeah,
It's kind of
well, that's what
smoke and mirrors to me type of thing.
Yeah, that's why I broke it down the way I did. So you'll see that on resources, line 3, I put $2,500 for registrations for the 3-on-3 basketball tournament. And then I've got it offset, the same 2,500 on line 16, the expenditure. So I mean, if the basketball tournament doesn't happen, then we wouldn't have any expenditures, so we wouldn't be taking in any revenue, so we wouldn't have any expenditures to balance it out.
Yeah, it actually,
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Same with the veterans ball, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's expecting about $7,500 for the bricks to be sold, and then we'll spend $7,500 on it. But if we
Yeah.
only sell $6,000 worth of bricks, we'll only spend $6,000 on
Right,
the wall.
right.
Okay, obviously the parks is still a big ongoing discussion with a lot of work to do, but is there any other discussion specifically pertaining to the way that the budget's been set up for the parks?
Run by a fencing on this one.
Be strong. Are we to the part with that thing that's supposed to go along the railroad track yet?
What's the next page?
Okay,
Yep.
yeah.
Yes. So yeah, this is that good write-up summary about the bike fund. Yeah.
That with the railroad safety thing going on, the walking trail, that would be not expensive. I think it's a bad idea. Now that, I mean, I'm getting,
It's in your park master plan.
yeah, but we even have to have fencing out here for our events. So to have a walking trail along the railroad, that could be dangerous.
Is that what this bike path construction fund is
Yeah,
for?
so how do we resolute to get rid of it?
Well, if I can speak to that, we don't have any plans for this bike path construction fund. And there was discussion a few years ago about creating a walking trail between here and Woodburn, because a lot of people use the tracks. But I mean, that's outside of the city limits, and so it would require, you know, a lot of partnerships, City of Woodburn. You know, there were concerns of safety and the cost, quite frankly. I mean, it'd be in the millions of dollars. So I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
In the park master plan. Yes, but so we've got a little bit. I think dated.
Parks master plan says to put a path to Woodburn, or
It was suggesting to put a walkway along the railroad and put in some miniature gardens, rain gardens, and just an overall.
Since then, we've improved our safety measures on the railroad. so-
okay, so it was saying like use the railroad as like a,
Not the railroad, but
but like
Right,
next
close
to,
it.
putting it next to the railroad because it's land that we can use and it's a interesting thing or something. Got it.
No, it's just not a permanent thing, like a building.
When was our park master
And
plan?
the railroad says
written?
we can't do anything permanent. That would be something that we would do. Yeah, it's pretty old.
Well, and that might be something that, you know, as a function of the Parks Committee, maybe looking further into, should that be something that should be brought to the council? To make a resolution to get the Parks Master Plan updated.
So can we, would it be possible to get rid of this resolution that's moving money, a portion of the state
That's
gas
what
tax
I'm trying to
into the bike path fund? Can we, I mean, obviously we can't do it tonight, but can we get rid of this and merge it with like a parks fund? And take that same money to go into a parks fund every year? Like, I don't know how all that works. But I'm thinking that like having something a little bit more general so that it's actually working towards what we want would be good. Because $1,000 a year towards a bike path, that's squat. That's not gonna go anywhere. And so, I mean, we're gonna get a bike
So
path.
we'd be able to transfer 11,000.
Right, like I'm just thinking there's $11,000 sitting there.
And we could do it.
Right, and then we could just do away with that, you know, do away with that resolution so that in the future, or even create a new one that says that money goes, so that we have $1,000 that we're putting into the park fund every year. Possibility, I don't know how that works,
We
so.
need to go into.
So, yeah, well, I mean, this is obviously, this is an incredibly old
So
resolution.
I know that's kind of like for now, we probably just need to approve this budget
Right.
going forward, but is that something we can look into? Let's put it that way.
Yes, so you'll notice on the top right of that page, it says this reserve fund will be reviewed to be continued or abolished. Date cannot be more than 10 years after establishment, review year 21-22. So we're in 21-22. Diana brought it up, so
Let's do it. Let's
council,
review it at council. later.
yes, okay.
We're done. What was that?
See, that's on a lot of previous pages we looked at too.
Yeah,
But what year, I guess we have to look at what.
All about the same time, 21, 22.
No, excuse me, but I thought that when we allowed that $1,000, you know, well, I've been in the budget committee for a long time, but I thought that was to beautify the city of Jervis. Yeah, to clean the parks and to put those baskets and the benches to sit downtown. You know, that was when I think that was something that we did, it was years ago. But
We have some stuff we haven't even touched on. But it's not doing this.
that's when they built that kind of enclosure here. And we started Fourth of July downtown.
Yeah, it's established a resolution for the purpose of constructing bike paths to the city of Jervis.
So, yeah. That was also discussed at that time, but there was no place actually because our streets weren't wide enough to put a bike. Yeah,
Sure.
so we discussed that too, long years ago. We just kept putting this.
Yeah, I mean, this is a 30-year-old resolution, so I think that, I agree. There's $11,500 there that could maybe be used to some purpose.
But for the way it is now, I'm not,
Ideas for.
we have to move forward now, so.
Okay, so any other questions on the bike path portion of the special fund?
I guess that, you got my money here.
The next portion of the special funds is the 4th of July fund. As was indicated in the summary,
Yeah, but I bring them.
we found that the average cost is normally to be around $4,000, and that covers both the parade and the fireworks, as well as our downtown activity area. So we're bringing in $919. We're planning on spending with the and then that 900 out. Sorry,
Where are
I
you?
skipped a page.
I'm like, I'm confused.
That's the 9 o'clock brain, sorry. Sorry, page 44, page 44. I skipped a page. So we're bringing in $394. We're planning on $1,000 coming in of donations, $200 of raffle tickets, vendor fees, $300 for the downtown area. Bring us up to a total of just over $5,000 in resources. As I was saying, we planned for roughly $4,000 in years past to cover our costs. But the balance budget is out at the 5,000.
The parade cost. What is the permit, like the county permits? So why is that not under license and permits? I'm just curious. Is it just so that we know that it costs, that the parade costs different than, I don't know, I'm just trying to figure out what exactly. Because I know that there's also like the fireworks permit. I'm just curious.
Yeah, it would be included in the 250. The cost for the parade.
Right, so that's the permit from the county then. Okay, so why do we have two separate lines? Just because that's how you ended up breaking it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Parade specific.
And they come from two separate accounts as well, so.
It's an add-on.
So, And then the 750, Laura, I'm assuming we have a plan for entertainment that we're budgeting? Okay, just curious, because it hasn't been in the past, so I just wanted to make sure that was a.
Any questions on the Fourth of July fund?
I have a question.
Yes.
So the 4th of July is now gonna be held again here downtown?
Yes.
Because we had a, nobody goes over there because there's no parking. I personally can't walk over there,
They will be here.
and the parking, and the people who live there use all the parking, you know. So it was a big fluke last time.
No, it will be down here.
Okay, now page 45, the page I incidentally skipped over to. This is just the special events fund. And this is collecting proceeds from the annual mayor's yard sale.
About that, I'd like to do a different approach. We'll talk about it later, but, I have a better idea, I think, that I'd like to bring forward to make it easier on cleanup and more festive. And I can use my talents in cooking, so.
Right now, for the budget part of it, we don't really have any planned incoming money into this fund, really. We're just transferring
Yeah.
over most of the money
Good idea
from
for
previous
it.
years, so.
So I have just a quick question, like, so have we used, like, we haven't used the money out of this recently. Is it mostly just because we haven't had need to because of COVID, like we haven't had events that we need to buy bike helmets for and whatnot?
Yeah,
We're gonna have the bike rodeo.
yeah,
Are we having the bike rodeo this year?
yeah.
Okay.
This is the fund we use to buy the bike helmets.
Right.
And things like
And
that.
I'm just looking, I'm like,
Mhm.
we didn't use it before, so I'm just wondering,
Yeah,
if it's actually being used, so,
it would had it not been for COVID.
got it.
It looks to me like we need to start getting on this and doing those spending on this one.
Sure, they'll get it.
How much do we spend on bike helmets average?
Well, last couple of years, we didn't have one, but I think 1 year we budgeted, well, it looks like 1920, 227. It just depends on how many kids come in. We've given out a lot of helmets. Walmart's donated some stuff. So I couldn't give you exact figure. Less than the total amount that's in here, though.
I say we increase that.
Any other questions on that last special events fund?
We're gonna get more money from this thing. For how long?
The special events.
Wow,
Or-
from our fund.
Oh, from ARPA?
Oh,
We're gonna get our next half of the total allocation, they say this summer.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that'll be it. So
And that's not included in this.
it is actually,
Oh,
yeah,
that is the change. Okay.
yeah. I don't want to get ahead of Chris.
Okay, so page 46, ARPA funds. We've been discussing this tangentially up till now. We are planning to get in a total of $683,000 into this ARPA fund. It sounds like if you look on the budget, it's basically just allocated to capital outlay as a very broad designation at this point in time. But from what I'm understanding, chief and city manager are working on some proposals to bring forward to the council of how we allocate some of the ARPA funds, perhaps for the lights, to do a really good job on lighting the park for public safety, cameras, any other projects that you wanted to emphasize on.
Yeah, so we would like to propose those items that you listed, and then with the majority of the balance going to the wastewater project that we have in the works.
Like talk about them in that order, just to say. I'd like to talk about the funds, and then I think the water is kind of, for me, as a priority. I'm hoping the council's on board with that. And then from there, talk about what's left in these other places. I think the water is in desperate need. And that is something that serves our citizens as well, you know. That's a daily need, so. That's my piece. You'll know my take ahead of time.
Any questions specific to the budget portion of it? We have a total coming in resources of 615, 691 and allocated back out. in expenditures, but not specified at this time what those allocations. Okay. Page 48. We're now into our SDC funds. The system development charges are collected at the time of new construction. So a lot of this is from the Ivy Woods development. And then these funds are then divided out to our other funds. The water, wastewater, storm drain, and parks all have portions of the SDCs. Page 49. We are transferring in a total of $248,621. And we are collecting an additional 41,206 SDCs. Again, because most of Ivy Woods has already been developed, there's much fewer houses that will be being built in this fiscal year. And that 290,547 is being allocated right back out to the system expansion for the capital outlays. Any questions on the water SDC?
What I just want to be clear, what does system expansion, what does that mean?
That would, you could call that, let's say we're gonna take that 290,000 and upgrade the water plant with the pumps. That would be system expansion. There's no plans to, you know. Yeah.
I noticed earlier, we talked about the debt service. And it's listed here, but there's no money. Remember we talked about the debt service?
Mhm.
You said I'll see it later.
Mhm.
Where's,
We're not there yet.
okay.
Yeah.
I just saw that with that where it's supposed to be.
No, that's one of the very last pages. Yeah, we're almost there.
That's an old
We're almost
loan
there.
line.
Yeah, this is the interfund loan. In 2014, the wastewater fund loaned the water fund money to build the second reservoir.
Okay. Page 50 is the wastewater portion of the SDCs. Again, bringing in a balance. And then the new SDCs coming in for the remainder of the builds in Ivy Woods. And allocated out to construction. Any questions on the wastewater portions of the SDC? Stormwater SDC. Again, bringing in cash balance of 202,000. We are expecting 18,500 for the rest of the development of Ivy Woods. We allocated out to construct. Page 52, if no questions. The park portion of the SDC, bring it in 237,630. The rest of the development from Ivy Woods, bringing in an additional 18,557. And that is being allocated out to construction. And that is our SDC fund. Any questions on any of the SDC funds? Okay. Now the debt funds, for Ms. Clifton's questions. So these are our existing debts from the 80s and 90s, these large long-term loans that we took out that we are paying into. There's two of them. There's one for water and one for wastewater. One came through the USDA, the other one through Business Oregon. Page 54 outlines the debt fund for the USDA loan for water. Bringing in a transfer of $21,657. That additional $20,000 from the water fund that we saw in the water fund budget that we are transferring in this debt fund. And then our principal and interest payments, which are due in March. Is that correct?
Yes, it should be
This is-
2023.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are due this upcoming March of 2023, line 7 and 8.
I have a question on this one. Why in the adopted budget for 2021-22? It seems like maybe the numbers are flipped.
Yes.
Okay, I was
Yes.
like, did we have some
But-
weird interest balloon payment?
No,
Okay,
no, that was, it should have been in the reverse in
Okay.
21-22, but the total debt payment is still the same,
right.
so. Good.
Okay, page 55 is the other loan for wastewater from Business Oregon. Again, we brought in a balance from the previous budget of $65,898. We transferred in from the wastewater fund, as we saw, the $60,000 into this debt fund. And then we have principal and interest payments, which should be 2022.
Yep,
of
Thank
November.
you.
So on these debt funds, so in 2025 and 2031, when they come retire,
Mhm.
do we just, because I'm noticing that the fund, the balance that we have to keep in there is kind of the same amount as like the yearly payment? Do we just kind of give our last payment and then just dissolve the fund? Is that how that works?
Yeah, it would probably be dissolved back into the wastewater fund or the water fund, depending on which one it was.
But like, so like, I'm just thinking like in the year for 25, 26, that budget year, just looking forward, would you not have to transfer money into the fund and you could just pay the payment directly out of the fund because we'll have a balance in there? Does that make sense? Like, there will be a surplus in there because we carry a balance every year.
Oh, right. You mean, so don't do the transfer
Right.
and just so
Is
it
that how
zeros
that
out?
works? Or do we?
Yeah,
or
that
we
would, that would,
transfer the money and then have to transfer it back?
yeah, it would depend on what the agreement says for the
Okay.
loan.
Okay.
But I see what you're saying, because if we're paying it off, it doesn't make sense to keep a reserve in the
Right.
fund.
But whatever is left just goes back into. the
Yeah.
appropriate fund.
Yeah.
Okay, just
Yeah.
curious.
Unless we take on another loan for one of the systems or another, so.
That is our last page of our budget. Do we have any questions or concerns as the budget was presented by?
The charter rules are supposed to be funding here for changing the charter.
Well, the city last changed the charter in 2013, and it's a process that goes out to the voters. It actually gets on the ballot.
In our charter, it says we have a fund for that.
There's supposed to be a budget, in the budget.
We have a budget.
It's supposed to be- Yeah.
Okay,
I didn't know.
Take a look at that.
I'll take a look.
Yep.
I'll take a look.
I'd like to, if you bring
And
it
have-
up.
You know, the SDCs that you have here is in that section.
It's in the charter?
Yeah. I read through it and went, huh, where's that at?
Almost 10 years. Any other questions or concerns as the budget was presented from any committee members, council members?
You did a really good job. Little fast on you, baby.
Well, it's already 9:15. I was trying to get us out of here sometime today.
We didn't, We do need a motion to
Yes.
adopt. Okay,
Yep.
okay,
Yep. I
gotcha.
just want to make sure there's no
Yeah.
other
Is
discussion.
that what it's gonna say?
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing to do.
So I would like to ask for a motion to accept the budget as presented with changes as was discussed within the committee.
There you go. He said it.
I'll second
There we
it.
go.
We have a motion from Councilor Harvey and a second from Mayor Gilland. The budget has been approved as presented. Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
take a vote.
Can I call for an individual vote, please, on the budget?
Yes.
Councilmember.
Yes.
This is Mayor Gilland?
Yes.
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 John Harvey?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
and yes from me. Thank you very much to our staff for presenting the budget. We appreciate very much the work that went into it. All the summaries were very, very helpful. Thank you to all the committee members for taking time out of your busy schedules to participate in our budget committee. Thank you for electing me chair again of the budget committee. Happy to serve. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
You read this so nice.